Hello everyone, this is Dr. Dayanand Sagaran. This video is about the greater impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, that is with respect to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic with the mental health of healthcare workers. Now, this video is for all the healthcare workers who are going through mental health issues, or even to the family members and the caregivers who are having mental health concerns or mental health burnout issues. First, I will be discussing it in more detailed and elaborate manner. The video involves in the form of introduction, what causes these problem, what are the manifestations, and how do we handle it. So this video is based on my experience as a psychiatrist, my personal experiences from working in COVID wards, and experiences of my friends and colleagues who have worked in the ICUs and other settings, and also it is backed up by some of the research articles that I have gone through. So it is both an approach from a clinician point of view and a common man point of view, and also as a psychiatrist. So first I would like to tell that a research article published in November 2020, after the when we had less cases after the wave 1. So anxiety disorders were said to be 24 to 67%. Like, that is, every one doctor or healthcare worker out of 4 individual had anxiety disorder. For depression, it was between 12.1% to 55.9%. For stress, it was around 30 to 63%. So the study said that more than 66% of the healthcare workers had one or the other type of mental health care issue, which was a striking finding. Now, as disasters increase, the COVID-19 pandemic, the second wave, the number of cases, the number of deaths and everything, as disasters increase, the mental health issues also increase in magnitude and in severity and increase in prevalence. Now, what causes these concerns with respect to healthcare workers? So it is multifactorial and multidimensional. First thing is the physical exhaustion. Whenever you do a COVID duty, so the dehydration, the sweating, the headache, nausea, loss of appetite that everybody go through, the weight loss that individual go through could be one of the reason. And also physical separation, working in the COVID wards, when you're isolated from your family, when you're staying away from your, be it your sibling, be it your partners, your parents, your kids, adds on to a significant factor. And also fear of being infected constantly whenever you're working in the ward, or whenever you are living with other healthcare workers. You always have whether have I masked up correctly, and also whether am I wearing the PPE correctly, is there a gap between my eyes, so is there any access of wind, whether am I exposing myself to the virus. This fear always will be running in our mind. The next one is lack of resources. The lack of resources being, whenever you are working in a setting, you want to give NRBM mask to all the patients, but however you have limited resource. You want to give remdesivir to all the symptomatic patients, but however when you see that you have limited supply of that. And also when it comes to number of beds, you want to shift a patient to the ICU, but however there are no ICU beds. You want to take in all the patients that come to you at the triage, but you have only a limited number of beds. So these lack of resources, where a health worker would be put in a dilemma of what to do and what not to do, causes a greater impact on his mental health. And also handling critically ill patients, those who are gasping, some of the doctors, those who are not very trained to see deaths at frequent numbers, like for example a dermatologist, a psychiatrist, a preclinical doctor, a paraclinical doctor, those who don't see deaths in their regular clinical practices or regular PG curriculum are exposed at more risk to undergo. Whenever they see these things happening, they are said to be at more risk to go through mental health trauma. Seeing critically ill patients where they are gasping, where they are fighting for breath, and also seeing deaths, frequent number of deaths, deaths among young patient, death of a mother with an infant, death of an elderly couple where one of the spouse dies, the other remains, and also being with the patient in their final moments when entire family cannot be there, but you are there with the patient, and the burden of their responsibility that is on your shoulders, the amount of helplessness that you feel when you are not able to resuscitate a patient, or when the patient that you resuscitate demises, that is also add to your mental health burden. And also the fact that you have to break the bad news, you were there with them during the last moment, you have to call the family members and you have to inform all these things. Along with that, there are logistical issues like handling a triage where you are where around 10 to 15 ambulance are in the waiting, and you are the one resident doctor that is working. There are the related patients, relatives can be abusive, they can be threatening. The trauma that you go through under these circumstances, where you feel totally helpless, where you need help but you're not getting enough help, where you have to make quick decisions but you're not able to make the decisions, all these things are going to significantly hamper a lot when it comes to your mental health. Now I would want you to focus on one aspect of the mental health dilemma, that is moral injury. Moral injury, as in, it is defined as there are certain set of moral values and practices that we follow, but if we are not able to practice them during the course of pandemic, that is called as moral injury. It is also, it can also be similar to compassion fatigue, where an individual who is sensitive to patients' cries, tears, their emotions, who is high on empathy, starts to feel emotionally numb because they are seeing these on regular basis and day-to-day basis. Let me give you some example. Now when it comes to the what government's plan is, if there are 10 patients and there is only one tablet which can save one patient, what is government's policy is to divide one tablet into 10 pieces and give to everybody. But however, what is clinical practice is, if we would have given that one tablet to one person, one would have survived. Now moral injury happens when is that, suppose there is only one ICU bed and you see that there are two patients who are severely sick, but when you have to make a choice, suppose you choose to shift a younger patient to the ICU, leaving the older patient. That is what is a moral dilemma. And when the thought of that comes to your mind, that what if that was my uncle, what if that was my grandfather whom I didn't shift to the ICU, the amount of trauma, the amount of thought process that we go through is moral injury. Suppose there is a patient whom you want to intubate, there is another patient who is sick, who is throwing convulsions in the casualty, who is in delirium, and you can only attend to one patient. Choosing one patient over the other is what is moral injury. So when it comes to our moral standards, we want to treat everybody, we want to give attention to everybody in equal amounts. However, because of the pandemic, when we are stuck choosing one patient over the other, one treatment protocol over the other, that somebody needs some form of treatment but you are not able to give it because of the concerns of the pandemic, that amount of helplessness is what is going to cause you moral injury or compassion fatigue. How does all these impact of mental health manifestation in a healthcare worker? It could be depression, which is characterized by an individual having a continuous sadness of mood lasting for more than a week, undue fatigability, feeling of decreased energy levels, and also lack of interest in doing any activities. Anxiety, which is constant apprehension, fear, and also it could manifest in panic. Like for example, somebody some doctor who is working in a triage, whom many family members have threatened already, saying that they would beat, they would kill the doctor for not giving a bed. That doctor may always have this apprehension to go to the duty. Whenever the thought of the duty comes, that doctor may have symptoms in the form of palpitations, sweating, tremulousness, and also whenever he thinks of the duty, all these symptoms can manifest. So, and then next one is the post-traumatic stress disorder, where an individual can also have significant nightmares with respect to his roles and duties. That could be there. And also guilt. Many doctors, or healthcare workers feel that, whenever they made choice of saving one patient over the other, they constantly feel responsibility and guilt for not saving the other patient. This video I am making on behalf of so many of my colleagues and friends who reached out to me saying that they're going through a lot of distress because of these issues. Otherwise, I would not make a video on this unless and until somebody asked me. So, a lot of healthcare workers are significantly suffering. And also, one more presentation would be shame. And also, one doubt that everybody harbors in their mind, that is, am I making a difference? That is, so many deaths are still happening in the hospitals. So, they say nearly around 10 to 20% of hospitalization or hospitalized admissions are resulting in death and mortality. In spite of all the effort that are put by healthcare workers. So the question of, am I making any difference in the pandemic, is one big question that haunts many healthcare workers. Now, having said all these things, let us look at the positive sides and let us look how we can solve these things. First thing is, for general public and everybody, few instructions would be to maintain physical distance from the virus. Of course, it does not apply to healthcare workers, but not social distancing. Social distancing is a wrong terminology. We should always maintain physical distancing. Social distancing, as in, you can still reach out to your close ones through video, text messages, phone calls, and also if you are in the family, you can talk to your family members, you can reach out to them and speak. So social distancing is not at all advised. You reach out to your close ones. Physical distancing is something that you should follow. Unnecessarily do not listen to the media unless and until you are watching news for brief period of around half an hour, where you want to get to know things around the world. Constantly listening to the news of the pandemic is again going to increase the panic that you are going to have. And also, staying in touch with everybody in and around is going to help. When it comes to healthcare workers, whenever you have duty, make sure that you are sleeping 6 to 7 hours at least in a given day after you finish your shift. And also follow good eating practices, because during your shift you might have skipped your meal. So follow good eating practices. Eat adequately. Try to limit on sugars and carbs. Seek help. This is one thing that I want to tell to everybody. So whenever you are helpless in a ward, whenever two patients collapses and you are just one, you also ask for your colleagues who are doing duty in the other floors or in the other ward. Whenever triage gets hectic, there are a lot of patient attendants. You reach out to institute authorities. You reach out to your colleagues. You reach out to your friends. First thing is asking help. It shows your strength and not your weakness. So always seek help. Next thing is, improvise on your skills. Some things like what dosage of insulin to be given, how to do CPR, okay, how to assess a patient at the casualty, so how to declare death, how to write death forms, these basics, how to connect NIV machine, how to connect HFNO machine. So wherever you are working in that particular area, in that particular ward, whatever skill that you need, you should enrich on that. What that gives you is a sense of confidence that you will get, and also the level of helplessness that you feel would also reduce to a drastic extent. One more thing is, only a health worker can understand the burden of another health worker. No matter how much you explain your situation to a non-medical person, they would either exaggerate what you are doing or they would like to minimize it. So, but whatever you go through, and another person, another healthcare worker would be able to understand it better. So, if you're a doctor, reach out to your friends. Even if you're a doctor, if you don't have very close friends, if you have anybody from, be it a paramedical worker or a nursing colleague, you speak to them whatever that trauma that you are going through, because they also share similar experiences. When you share these experiences, you understand that you are not alone in this. So let me tell you, as I was saying, more than 2/3 of the doctors or healthcare workers are going through a significant amount of mental health burden. That you need to remember. Also, one thing you should remember is to let it go. Like, for example, if you're holding a glass of water in your hand, so you can hold it for only for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The more you hold it, the strain on your shoulders is going to increase. Similarly, the more you hold on to your role as a doctor or a healthcare worker, even after your duty hours, when you are constantly worried about that, when you are constantly thinking about that, it is like holding your hand with the glass for entire 24 hours. It is definitely going to injure you. Similarly, when it comes to your mental health, let it go. The moment you remove your PPE, you should be, mentally and physically be away from your work environment until your next shift or next duty comes. So once you go, do not think too much about what happened within 6 hours. Within that 6 to 8 hours, you give your best. Also, don't feel guilty. The pandemic state is like a war. What happens in a triage is, any person who requires minimal intervention to get maximum benefit should be given first priority when compared to a chronic debilitated patient. Similarly, do not feel guilty. You are not responsible for not having enough ICU beds. You are not responsible for not having oxygen beds. You are not responsible if there are less number of beds and there are a lot of patients are waiting in triage. Do not take the blame on self. You are only responsible for the patients that you are treating and that you are seeing. And what you are supposed to do is, you have to give your best during that period. That is what you can do. So don't blame anything on yourself. Don't feel guilty for the mistakes that you have not done. I have seen my colleagues saying that I see so many deaths happening and I'm not able to, do anything because of all these issues, and I feel so helpless for one or the other reason. Don't let that happen to you. You got to let it go. You have to let it go, and also don't carry the burden of all the patients. You are responsible for only the patient that you are seeing and you are treating. So let the policymakers, let the government, or let all the authorities take the accountability. You focus mainly on your clinical aspects, mainly on your patients. Always make it a point that you reach out to your administrators. Of course, at some areas they may be very stubborn, they may be very rude, but in many cases they may be very supportive also, but just that the issues that you go through they may not be aware of. So like, for example, lack of supply of something, lack of error in some machinery, lack of availability in beds, leakage in the oxygens. So all the issues, whatever issues that you face that can be corrected at an institute level, please bring it to the notice of your staff or your nodal officers. So many may be willing to change something, but they will not be knowing what is wrong. So make sure that you always inform them, and also attend to your family needs. Once you are done with your duty, if you are not symptomatic, if you are not in quarantine, please make sure that within indoors you spend maximum time with your family. You talk to them, you attend to your family roles as well. And also remember, though the second wave is so bad, it has hit us so bad, even then, there are so many patients who are recovering. You may see 3 to 4 deaths in your shift, but the number of discharges that you are seeing in your ward, in your hospital, is also huge. Whenever they smile and leave the ward, whenever they wave at their fellow patients and leave the ward, whenever they tell thank you when they are collecting the discharge summaries, that is the moment where we have to feel proud and happy. Last one suggestion that I would like to tell is, whenever you are on duty or otherwise also, every day before you sleep, try to make it a point that you write one happy moment of that particular day. The moment could be anything: a patient smiling, or a granny saying thank you, or when you see one patient helping the other, or where you did a resuscitation to some patient and the patient got better, or when an NRBM patient was shifted back to oxygen mask, or an ICU patient shifted back to ward. Any little happiness that you find, make sure that you recollect it at the end of the day, and also, if possible, write it down. So these are some of the things. This video you can share with your all medico friends, be it your nursing staff, paramedics, group Ds, doctors, and also you can share it with all the non-medicos who have suffered COVID or their relatives. The video I have made, again, keeping in mind that there are so many of my own colleagues who reach out to me saying that they're having a tough time. Of course, in case if you're not able to handle all these things, in spite of all the measures, if you still find it difficult, you're always free to consult a psychiatrist. When it comes to reaching out to people, if in case you feel that you're not able to reach out to anybody, and if you need some space where you can vent out all the emotions or all your experiences that you go through, you are always free to mail me. Of course, I may or may not respond back to you. You just utilize it as a drop-in box where you can let all your stories or your difficulties or your struggles go through. So my email ID is dayaspandana@gmail.com, DAYAASPANDANA, dayaspandana@gmail.com. So thanks for watching this video. You need not have to subscribe, but I just hope that you share this particular video to the maximum possible. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time.